Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 129. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Friday, Steelers Nation. Dave, the 2023 Pittsburgh Steelers schedule has finally been released along with the rest of the NFL. I know you guys know it's not my favorite time of year, but still lots to react to. And of course, rookie minicamp weekend begins today and runs through Mother's Day on Sunday. So a lot to talk about today, Dave.
Yeah, there is. It's and the NFL is a machine. I think we've kind of figured that out by now. Got my YouTube NFL Sunday ticket all taken care of, signed, sealed, and delivered. So that's out of the way. Going to be in a pretty eventful weekend, I guess. Overall, I think media has access to the players on Friday and Saturday. Obviously, the bulk of this rookie minicamp is tryout players, so we'll have to see how many maybe end up getting contracts after that's over. I would imagine a few of these undrafted guys will be popular guys, obviously, along with the draft picks this weekend with interviews. Guys like Monty Pottenbaum, I imagine we'll probably get some video or something from him and all. But an exciting time of year, and is what Andy Weidel calls it Christmas morning, right?
Hopefully,
Merry Christmas, Alex.
Merry Christmas, Dave. Hopefully. I remember, I think Weidel, I know past, former scouts like Jim Nagy have talked about the first time you see these rookies out there, you just sit there and go, please be good. Please look good. Please look good for me. Because I know Nagy told a story of one time they drafted a guy in the third round and rookie minicamp or OTAs just looked miserable. And they realized we screwed up. And so it's kind of a little anxiety for these scouts that were banging the table for some of these later round guys to justify the selection.
Yeah, and we could probably roll through a couple of draft picks over the years, and we wonder how they looked at rookie minicamp, right? Gerard Holman.
I'm sure we could. All right, Dave. Before we get into rookie minicamp, let's talk about the NFL schedule. Obviously, that's going to be the top story here, dominating football news. It was already released essentially before the official schedule was dropped at 8 p.m., but we'll go ahead and rattle it off here. Week 1 home opener. So finally, after a long drought, 2014, last time Pittsburgh began a season at home, that streak thankfully is over, and a very interesting opponent to do it against. The San Francisco 49ers will come to town week 1. That'll be September 10th, 1 p.m. on Fox. And so that is a heck of a way to start a season.
Yeah, it is. And I think as I noted in a post last week there, not often in recent history do you see the Steelers open at home, but also it's rare to have the Steelers open up against an NFC team on top of it. You have to go back, I think, to that game against the Falcons many years ago at home. That was the infamous. That was the walk-off.
The Mendenhall touchdown.
Yeah, the Mendenhall overtime walk-off game there. So, yeah, a couple of streaks come to an end here this year with them. And look, you didn't have to be a rocket surgeon or anything to kind of figure out that there was a good chance the streak was finally going to end this year when it came to home openers. Everything was kind of aligning and going that direction. I think the biggest surprise, though, is that you do get an NFC team coming to Pittsburgh in week 1. And, you talk about a team in the 49ers, the biggest question at this point when it comes to that week 1 game is who's going to be their opening week quarterback, because obviously Purdy, I had that surgery from that injury way back in the NFC Championship game against the Eagles, and it's going to be a process for him to get over and overcome. And they obviously got a couple of other quarterbacks on the roster there, and who Trey Lance and Sam Darnold, right? Over there. I think that's going to be one of the main talking points when it comes to the wind up to the week 1 game is who's going to be their quarterback.
Yeah, I called it Brock Purdy watch. Steeler fans will be joining 49ers fans and keeping an eye on that situation. I know that Kyle Shanahan recently spoke and expressed optimism that Purdy would be able to participate in camp. Now, would that mean that he'd be cleared for week 1? We're not quite sure. And obviously, they're all kind of taking this, week by week, essentially, on Purdy's status. So if it isn't Purdy, then I don't know who it's going to be, Darnold or Lance. My guess would be Darnold, but I really have no clear feel on that.
And, could Trey Lance be dealt from this point moving forward into the offseason?
That's possible. Those rumors existed a lot during the offseason. They've kind of, I think, quieted down, but all it takes is one team to get involved.
And, the other thing about Purdy is even if he is healthy enough to play, you still got a small sample size overall with him, right? And look, I mean, during that streak, he was pretty damn good. But I mean, it's still, how many times have we seen quarterbacks come into the league and light it up 6, 7, 8, or at least play well 6, 7, 8 games, and you get on into that second set of 10 games or whatnot, and you think, they got figured out real quick. You know what I'm saying? So, and obviously, Darnold, we all know his struggles since coming into the league, but we do know how that offense has a lot of weapons, and it makes you kind of wonder, does it really matter who has the keys to it?
Sure. I mean, part reason for Purdy's success was obviously the great system, the great coaching, great supporting cast. And so that's always an element of it. And Darnold's going to be walking into the best situation he's been in ever in his NFL career. But to me, when I think about this game, Steelers 49ers, of course, I got to think about San Francisco's defense and that elite group, that fantastic defensive line with, Nick Bosa. They signed Javon Hargrave this offseason. And so what a great litmus test for Kenny Pickett in this kind of new look, newly built Steelers offense to see how they succeed against arguably the best defense in football.
Yeah, they're going to have a test there. And the 49ers, though, will have a new defensive coordinator, right?
Yeah, because D'Amico Ryans is gone, and he's gone to Houston. So it is, who is the 49ers DC? Who did they tab to replace? It wasn't Desai, was it? Steve Wilkes. Steve Wilkes is their DC.
That's right.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a big test out of the gate, but I like that challenge. I like facing that top tier team out of the gate. I think that's going to be a really good way to gauge where the Steelers are at.
Yeah, look, I mean, you get a team that was in the NFC Championship game last year, right? So. You want to talk about a measuring stick out of the chute? You get one, and you get them at home, fortunately, as well, too.
And then week 2, staying at home. First time Pittsburgh will have back-to-back home games in week 1, week 2 since 1997. So week 2, a big one. Monday night against the Cleveland Browns on ABC. And so that's going to be one of those big-time matchups, prime time, similar to last year. I think last year was a Thursday night game, but yeah, Monday night against the Browns.
Yeah, get to strap it up. Who can run the ball the best? That should be another good test right out of the chute. At least you get them at home. It's obviously your first AFC North game of the season, and look, I mean, I know you don't. There's no ideal way to draw this thing up, but I mean, at least you get the 2 games at home, right? You get the extra day there after week 1 to prepare for your first division game in the Browns, and you get them at home. So, I mean, I guess you could talk about the quality of of the opponent there in week 1 as possibly a negative, but I mean, what else? I mean, you get 2 at home once again. And the Browns of all teams coming in as the first AFC North opponent. I don't see what's not to like.
Yeah, I think it's 2 teams that are, being optimistic about their season and rightfully so, but riding a lot on quarterback play in the sense of Kenny Pickett, year 2, can he make that jump? For Cleveland, Deshaun Watson, year 2 in Cleveland, first full year, no suspension, all that stuff's behind him. And so, there's a lot of pressure on Cleveland to succeed this year in that year where, it's going to be, there's no excuses for Watson, no rust, none of those factors. It's, how good is this guy still? All right, week 3, first road game out in your neck of the woods, Dave, at the Las Vegas Raiders. Another primetime game, back-to-back primetime games, this one on Sunday Night Football. And so that'll be the first road game of the year in Vegas.
Yeah, I think the only and look, obviously the Steelers haven't been great against the Raiders on the road, especially during the Mike Tomlin era. What is it? 0-3 versus now. This will obviously be their first trip to Vegas, but when they were the Oakland Raiders, I think Mike Tomlin 0-3 on the road against them since he took over as head coach there. I guess the biggest drawback here is you're doing this on a short week after a Monday night game and then having to play again in prime time and having to make that long trip out to Vegas and all like that. But what is it? Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback and kind of a new look Raiders, I guess, in a sense there. So that will be a tough test. First road game out west and on a short week at that.
And then it makes it even tougher because they're on the road the following week on that kind of short week playing that night game at Houston week 4 for a Sunday 1 p.m. contest.
Yeah, but if you were to pick any team to have a short week road game against on this schedule, would it be the Texans?
Probably, but yeah, I mean, I assume CJ Stroud will be their starting quarterback by then. And, I think it's a new era there. And, I know the Pittsburgh's had some success against Houston, but Texans have been one of those teams that have always kind of been a thorn in the side as well. There's been some ugly losses to the Houston teams over the years. So
that old Tommy Maddox game years ago.
That was at the 24-6 game where Houston had like 50 yards of offense and Pittsburgh still somehow got blown out in that one. Just, I think, the worst loss in Pittsburgh Steelers history, even worse than the 51-0 loss to start the 89 season. But anyway, I don't take anything for granted. There are back-to-back road games like that.
Right. But you would agree if you were to pick one game on a short week to have to play on the road, this might be it.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I guess it's the best way to handle the back-to-back road games like that.
Hopefully not eating those words come October, the night of October 1st.
How about this, Dave? An early game against the Ravens. The schedule makers in recent years have been pushing those Ravens games to late in the season, something like, week 12 and week 18 or something along those lines. But a week 5 home game against Baltimore in, again, week number 5.
Yeah, it's like they want the Steelers to feel it a little bit going into their bye, right? Two AFC North games within the first 5 games of the season, and at least you have both those games at home. So that will be an interesting test on October 8th at Acrisure Stadium for sure.
And as you mentioned, a week 6 bye. I know most people don't seem to like it. I don't hate the early bye here for Pittsburgh in week 6 for a young team that kind of can reevaluate itself 5 games in, coming off a Ravens game. I mean, obviously, you would, I guess, kind of like a bit later bye, something more in the middle, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine with a week 6 bye.
All right, then week 7 post-bye, back on the road out west to play the LA Rams. It's a 4:05 game on Fox. So big road trip off the bye week.
Yeah, and the Rams though aren't your uncle's Rams probably, or aren't who would be the next line? Your older brother's Rams.
Yeah, or the Rams of 2 years ago.
Right. Now, obviously they still have Aaron Donald on that defense, but this is a Rams. This is the Allen Robinson revenge game.
Yes,
we have circled, right. I know immediately. I went right to the schedule and circled this as the Allen Robinson revenge game. No, I didn't. But Yeah, once again, you still have Aaron Donald on that team. Still, got a great coach in McVay. Stafford obviously still over there, so probably not as daunting of a task as it would have been a couple of years ago. But you still have to make that trip out there and play the game.
Yeah, and still a plan to defend Cooper Kupp, which Pittsburgh did unbelievably well the last time. The last time they played Kupp, they shut him out, right? That was the whole with the reporter asking Tomlin after the game how you stop Kupp to 0 catches, and Tomlin looked at him and went, "You serious?" And I didn't even realize Kupp didn't catch a pass that game, so that'll be a big challenge there.
Yeah, Minka with a big drive, robber drive down to, I think, break one of those up. Wasn't it in that game?
I think so. And he had a touchdown in that game off that awkward kind of fumble where everyone kind of stood around and he raced the ball in the end zone. So big one there. Week 8 through week 10 is pretty interesting. 3 straight home games for Pittsburgh. Week 8 at home against Jacksonville, a Thursday night game versus Tennessee week 9. And then we'll see the Jordan Love era in week 10 when Green Bay comes to town. So 3 straight home games. Pretty interesting there. And of course, you got the Thursday nighter against Tennessee.
It feels like, just looking at this on paper, this is a stretch of 3 games where you better rattle them off. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I'm with you.
Obviously, depending on how you first, who knows what the record will be at that point, but it really feels like this is a stretch. And look, not disrespecting the Jaguars, they obviously are on a team on a rise. The Titans, though, I mean, what's going to be their situation at quarterback come that time? And they obviously going through a bit of an organizational change. So I don't view them as kind of they were more of a running juggernaut type team when they were on their screws anyway. But and obviously no Aaron Rodgers there in Green Bay. It just looking at this on paper once again, it looks like a stretch of 3 games that, oh boy, you'd like to see the Steelers rattle off 3 straight wins here.
Or at least go 2-1. Jacksonville will be tough. They're going to be a serious contender this year, especially in that weaker AFC South. But you got to go at least 2-1 over that stretch. Week 11, Week 12, back-to-back road games against AFC North opponents at Cleveland Week 11 and at Cincinnati Week 12. And so that's certainly going to be a pretty meaty part of the schedule right there, Dave.
Yeah, you better know who you are and have identities on both sides of the football. At this point, and like you just mentioned, you better be coming off of a stretch of 3 games where at the minimum you went 2-1, and hopefully at worst you split your first 2 divisional games, right? Because I mean, how many times have we seen over the years? I mean, 3-3 in division, yeah, you can still get in. We've seen teams get into the playoffs out of the AFC North going 3-3 in divisional games. But if you really want to increase those odds, and Mike Tomlin said it several times, you got to do your work in the division first. So
sure.
You better have everything nailed down at this point of the season. Once again, coming off that 3-game home stretch there, this is the second half of second half of your schedule here. Those are some big games that are on the road at that in the state of Ohio.
All right, now moving along, Week 13 at home against Arizona. Hopefully that'll be a win, but I don't like to assume anything that far out in a season. And then Week 14, another home game, another Thursday night game. New England will come to town. So 2 Thursday night games this year for Pittsburgh, Week 9 and Week 14. We're not going to get a lot of sleep this year, Dave. I don't think it's going to be some tough turnarounds. Yeah,
but the good thing is you got a lot of 1:00 games in there. And who cares? People don't care about us, but we get a week 6 bye there, so we can lick our wounds real quick. But I mean, Kyler Murray will be a challenge. We'll see if Hopkins remains in Arizona, right? That might be a big question mark moving forward to the start of the season. What's going to happen with them? They're obviously an organization that's trying to, new upper or new coach, new kind of front office structure there. And, the Patriots are the Patriots. And your Thursday night, you got to believe that place will be ramped up.
Sure. And of course, the one benefit to Thursday night, they're both at home, which is very good. So both your Thursday night games at home, Tennessee week 9, at home, New England week 14. You get the mini bye on the other end where you get the 10-day layoff. And so that's kind of the upshot for them and for us. Here's where I think it gets really brutal at the end in terms of a structure standpoint of a schedule. Week 15 through week 18, the final 4 games, 3 on the road at Indy week 15, at Seattle week 17, at Baltimore week 18, and then playing at home against the Bengals in week 16. That is a tough way to end that schedule. 3 games on the road, a far West Coast trip to Seattle, and then back-to-back games. You're playing Baltimore at their place week 18 to finish out the season. That is not the way I would love to end the season.
Yeah, but I think that's the sacrifice you make to get back-to-back home games to start the season. It probably equals out somewhere, right? And but to have to and look, I mean, it's been a thing anyway. We're normally at least 2 of your final 3 games, and most notably with the Steelers, as of I think the last 2 or 3 seasons, it's been back-to-back AFC North games to close out the season. So instead of back-to-back games in the division close out the season, you have a week 16 game at home against Cincinnati. Then you go on the long road trip to Seattle, and then you close out with the Ravens. So the Colts game in there, obviously you don't want to overlook that one, but I think you would as well too. Probably, at least on paper, looks to be the easiest of the final 4. But once again, 3 of the final 4 on the road, and then sandwich which within there is 2 AFC North games. So it is. Hopefully, you got a foot at that point of potentially a look at the playoffs, and there figures to be a lot riding on at least these final 3 games with 2 in division.
Sure, I would expect that, but I would gladly trade the home games to start the year. I would trade the week 2 home game against the Browns to have a week 17 or week 18 home game to finish out the year, but obviously not the case, and so that is the schedule, and Pittsburgh will just have to deal with it.
You play the teams that they tell you to play, right? You play them in the order. I've always wondered how much the pre-scheduled drop versus the post-scheduled drop psychologically changes the outlook of fans when it comes to a record,
I'm sure it does to some degree, and it's just a neat order to start predicting these things. Obviously, people love to do the win-loss predictions, which I will not do today, but people like to do that once the whole schedule is in order. And obviously, the way a schedule is formed, like I just said, playing those 3 road games in your final 4 games, has an impact on how you think that season might go in terms of wins and losses. But end of the day, for me, I know most of this stuff will be forgotten once that ball's kicked off week 1. So it's a lot of energy right now that'll be burned out, once other football things start happening.
I think my main takeaway from this goes back to those 1, 2, 3 games after the bye, and let's even call it a 4-game run, because the Rams once again aren't the juggernaut, or at least we don't think they're going to be the juggernaut they were a couple of seasons ago. So if you look at those 4 games after the bye, at the Rams, at home against the Jaguars, Titans, and Packers, that really seems like a string of 4 games where I might really set the pace of what happens the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably fair. You just never know how a season will go. There's going to be so many twists and turns. And so I look at the schedule, I look at the bye, I look at primetime games and the Thursday night games. But after kind of digesting that, I just sit there and say, okay, it's week 1. It's San Francisco. That's kind of where I put my focus, because from there, who the heck knows what teams will be good, what teams will surprise, disappoint, injuries. So much can and will change that it's just hard for me to put much stock into really anything.
True or false? The Steelers need to go 4-2 in the division to make the playoffs in 2023.
I'll say true on that. Just how competitive the North is, how competitive the AFC is. I'll say true.
I will say true as well too. If they go 3-3, or obviously worse, they're going to have to really string together some wins.
Right, for sure.
So I would say true to that. And look, they're a young developing team at this point, right? The Steelers are overall, and 4-2 or better in division, and I like their chances of making the playoffs if that happens.
Should mention the preseason schedule as well. Pittsburgh's first game in a stadium will be August 11th at Tampa Bay. They'll be hosting Buffalo in week 2, and then on the road at Atlanta in the third and final week of the preseason. So 2 road games this year for the Steelers in exhibition action.
Yeah, and that comes after playing, obviously, 3 last year with 2 being at home. So, and they went 3-0 in a preseason last year. My younger self would have really been happy with the looks at this year's preseason schedule, right? Because Tampa Bay, obviously, I could have made that trip had I wanted to, and then where else were they? Atlanta, right?
Atlanta, yeah, right. Your neck of the woods,
right? And I've obviously been to a couple of games in Atlanta in the past there, but that'll be a nice treat for fans down south for sure if they're able to make some of those.
All right, Dave. Any final thoughts there on the schedule?
Looks like 17 nameless gray faces.
I'll call it 16. The 49ers, they are to me, they're the one face I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see this play out. Once again, I think all the talk, for the next several weeks, months will be, who's going to be that starting quarterback for the 49ers in week 1.
Sure. That's going to be a big question that, again, we'll be watching very closely throughout the summer. Dave, as we mentioned earlier, Steelers rookie minicamp kicking off today. It'll run through Sunday, so players arriving on scene today. Pittsburgh just released its rookie minicamp roster. Of course, the draft picks are all there. Everybody from Broderick Jones to Spencer Anderson. You got to select first-year players. I was incorrect, and I correct myself last night, but I thought Calvin Austin would be eligible for this. I'm mad that players that get injured like that cannot participate in rookie minicamp. It feels like they should be able to, but there's a couple select first-year players, including Master Teague, we've talked about quite a bit, and 33 tryout players. Most names we've known. One notable name that we did not know that was on the roster today is Nick Boyle, and he is not a rookie, far from it. He is the former Baltimore Ravens big blocking tight end who's, I guess, converted to long snapping. He was long snapping at Maryland's Pro Day. I remember reading that story back in March, and so he's in camp. I don't know if he's going to play any tight end, but he'll certainly at least be long snapping.
Yeah. How many other tryout players? I mean, there's obviously several that we weren't able to identify ahead of them, but we had a good bunch of them, right?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number. We probably identified around 15 to 20 of the 33 listed. I think most notably, people are asking us this morning, is where is Hakeem Butler? He's not listed here as a tryout player. He reportedly had been an XFL invite because those guys can't technically sign contracts until May 15th. And Omar Khan just spoke yesterday and mentioned Hakeem Butler by name when talking about the wide receiver room. So I have to still think he's in the fold. Maybe there's something else going on here where he's just going to sign a contract after rookie minicamp, but it does not appear he's actually part of this weekend process.
Or maybe his agent said, look, you can go out there, you can run up to Pittsburgh and run around and run a few routes on air for them. But at this point, I don't think you should have to take part in any minicamp practices, considering kind of the experience that he has. And my main takeaway, and we're going to get into what Omar Khan said on the radio yesterday there, but he talked like Hakeem Butler's already on that depth chart and signed, sealed, and delivered. So it might just be a formality at this point. And once again, it might be something to the effect of, do you really need to see Hakeem Butler out there, in the mini camp setting and risk injury or anything like that? Or do you want him just come up there and quote unquote, maybe try out and just show you all that he's healthy and then him sign a contract after that? So, but I mean, you do have the other XFL guy on the roster or a couple of them, right? The center there from the Battlehawks, and Okiki is the other one there. So, hopefully there's not more to this story other than, they're going to sign him anyway. And to hear Omar talk yesterday on the radio, I mean, it sounds like Hakeem Butler's expected to be part of this offseason wide receiver depth chart. Right.
So my assumption is that the understanding was don't come to rookie minicamp and risk injury when you're not technically under contract. We know that we're going to sign you either way. So he'll get signed on Mondays and I'll participate in OTA. So that'll be my thought. My expectation right now is they just decided that there's no need to risk that injury and he's going to get signed regardless. So I'll still assume that Butler's part of this thing based on Khan's comments, but hopefully Monday will give us that clarification.
I guess the only other maybe plausible thing here is maybe another team said, look, we'll give you more money if you come over here or something. But once again, that I would think the way that Omar Khan talked about Butler yesterday, if anything like that happened, it happened within the last, overnight or something like that. But right. We'll wait and see. I mean, like you said, teams have to wait till the 15th to sign these players. So if he's not signed, sealed, and delivered by the 16th, then maybe there was a problem there somewhere.
Should note from the rookie class, the guys that reportedly were under contract, Trevor Downing, the undrafted free agent from Iowa State, not listed on here. And so I assume he did not actually sign his contract. He had some knee injuries. He dislocated his kneecap in the NFLPA game back in January. Really couldn't work out in the pre-draft process. So I imagine that he still medically could not get cleared and that deal fell through. So Downing was that, versatile guard center from Iowa State. It does not sound like he's a Steeler right now.
All right. Now, he was one of the undrafted guys, right?
Yes, mentioned that. Yeah, he was a UDFA that we reportedly had signed, but I'm guessing he couldn't pass his physical, and he got released before that deal actually became official.
All right. And once again, the team has not, and they have not come across, they announced the guys that they agreed to terms with after the draft was over, but the official signings have not hit the NFL.com transaction sheet on any of these guys yet. And that usually happens like today or tomorrow. If they,
because they got to get a physical, they got to come in, all that stuff. Right.
Right. So I would think by later today, we should have the list of technically the undrafted guys that they have signed. And then we'll wait as the draft picks actually sign their contracts.
Right. And one of them just signed in Corey Trice. That got reported late last night. So I imagine the later round guys will come in here pretty quickly, but Trice's deal is done. And what's the numbers on that contract 4-year deal, Dave?
Yeah. You having problems with your headset there?
No. Do I sound weird?
Oh, it was breaking out for a moment there. Okay. Let's see. Trice will that 4-year slotted contract should total out at a hair over $3.924 million, include a signing bonus of somewhere right around $84,436. He'll have just minimal base salaries throughout this thing over the course of the 4 years. His 2023 cap number should come in at right around $771,109. As far as what it's going to hit the cap at and impact the rule of 51, only the prorated portion, only the 2003 prorated portion of the signing bonus, which should be around $21,109, will actually impact the Steelers' rule of 51 number overall, because of his minimal base salary, because of the total value of that first year. It does not, overall impact the 51, but any proration amount outside of the rule of 51 has to impact that. So in this case, it's a measly 21,109. So as you mentioned, that's one of 7 draft picks now reportedly signed. By the time Sunday night gets here, I would imagine at least 4 of these, potentially 5, maybe even 6 of these draft picks will have signed their rookie deals, because once again, these things are slotted and there's not much haggling room, especially when it comes to these guys drafted, from Nick Herbig on. I would expect all those guys to get done. Even Washington, I would expect his deal to potentially get done, and possibly even Benton let's see, who was the second pick?
Benton was 49 overall. I think Porter is going to be an interesting one, how they handle the whole 32nd overall thing.
Yeah, there might be a little time delay in that. And Broderick Jones, even though all four of his contract should be fully guaranteed at where he was drafted and all, there might still be some wiggle room and some roster bonus and kind of structure of base salaries there as well too. But I mean, all that said, I mean, this team could come out of this weekend with all 7 of them signed. But I would expect at least 4 of them, possibly even 5 by the time Sunday night rolls around to be signed, sealed, and delivered.
Right. These things don't take long around the league. You're already seeing first-round picks sign. I think 3 or 4 guys have already signed their first-round deals. And, I think some teams have already had majority of their classes already inked. And so Pittsburgh should follow suit here pretty quickly. To go back to the minicamp roster of the 33 tryout players, do any other names stick out to you besides Nick Boyle? Bryce Perkins in camp, quarterback for the Rams. He's got a bit of NFL experience. So they got 3 quarterbacks in camp right now in Perkins, Hunter Johnson, and Tanner Morgan, the UDFA. You could certainly see Perkins get signed to be that 4th quarterback on this roster.
Yeah, and they, Omar was kind of hammered on that yesterday, and he didn't give an answer for sure whether or not they're going to add a 4th quarterback, but the way he answered that was, if there's any way we think that we can improve, any of our rooms moving forward, we're going to do that. So could Bryce Perkins be that guy? He's a Virginia kid too, right? Yeah.
Went to school there. Yeah.
Yeah. Went to college there. So, could he be the guy potentially? Yeah, absolutely. And Hunter Johnson, he's got a weird backstory, doesn't he?
Yeah, he was a 5-star high school recruit that never really worked out in college, committed to Clemson, went to Northwestern, and then for 2022 went back to Clemson, only threw 6 passes last year. So they always kind of do this. They had a guy a couple of years ago, Kelly Bryant, who was the same big-time recruit, actually had a better college career than Johnson, was in rookie minicamp, and he never got signed. So we'll see. I mean, Duck Hodges at one time was a tryout guy in the same situation, so you never count any of these guys out.
That Toa Taua out of Nevada, this year's, I don't want to call him this year's Jaylen Warren, because that's quite a bar at this point right now. But, an undersized running back, I got to watch a lot of him a couple of years ago, obviously.
God, yes.
Watching a lot of the Carson Strong and a lot of those Nevada games. So I got to watch quite a bit of him in that offense, and he's a pretty talented, for a guy his size, he can run inside, kind of a bigger build kind of guy. And I would imagine would be more than willing to play on special teams and all like that. I don't know if he's going to come out of this weekend as getting signed, but when you kind of look at the running back depth chart overall and, the need of bodies, maybe he's a guy to watch. That Mike Panasiuk, I mentioned him in that center of attention post that I did a couple of years ago, or a couple of days ago. And it was kind of rewarding to see him be an invite. And so I think there's maybe a pretty decent chance that he gets a contract coming out of this rookie minicamp. Obviously, we've mentioned Okiki coming over from the XFL, and how this team could probably still stand to add a tackle or two. Maverick Wolfley is a guy that we talked about the other day. By name recognition alone, be interesting to see what happens there. Who else on this? You mentioned Perkins. I don't know if there's anybody else. I guess that Adam Korsick, right? The Rutgers punter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only problem is that there's 2 punters right now.
Right.
And so if they could obviously sign Korsick, but you're cutting I guess probably Harvard. I don't think they'll do that, but Corsick's got a good college background and resume. Yeah, you kind of hit on all the big names there. I think guys like how do you say the Nevada kid's last name? Tawa.
Yeah, where was I? Yeah, Taua.
Yeah, he was in the Eagles rookie minicamp last weekend, and so I think the guys like him. There's Sylvanta Oliver, for the nickel corner from Memphis. He was in a camp, I believe, last weekend, and so I think those guys that are in their second camp kind of have a small leg up, just because they're a little less wide-eyed going into an NFL practice. It's a little bit of been there, done that, a little bit fewer nerves, and so I don't know if there's really a correlation between the odds of those guys making it. That have been in camps before, but I always kind of look at those names that were in camps last weekend. One other name that's interesting here, and the odds of him being signed are pretty low, but just for the story, and I saw Teresa Varley tweet this out earlier. Alfreda Lozada, a kicker from a Mexican tryout camp, apparently is how Pittsburgh found this guy that they held at some point, and he got signed because of it. So 26 years old, don't know what his background is. I don't know if he's playing soccer or something like that, but interesting there to, how far and wide scouts and teams look to find some of these players. Apparently he got signed out of a Mexico tryout camp.
Hey, no stone left unturned, right? Especially this team right now. So good for them. And a couple of those HB, was it CU?
HBCU kids, yeah.
Yeah. So hey, you never know. And odds are obviously good that a couple of these guys this weekend are going to get signed, right?
Yeah, there's 4 open spots right now, and let's maybe Butler will count as one of those spots, so we'll call it 3. But there probably will be 1 or 2 tryout guys signed at least.
Okay, true or false? True rookie tryout guys. At least one of them will be signed.
True.
I'll go true as well. History says that will happen.
Right. Just to rattle off 2 last things. We mentioned this before. Gabe Oladipo, the former track and field star who never played a down of football in college, joined the Texas Tech football team in 2022, was on their scout team and, practice team the entire year. So that's an interesting story there. And then one other defensive lineman to look for, Brandon Gaddy from Alabama State, one of those HBCU guys. He was a Maryland transfer. He's got size, some production as well. So that's a guy that, I haven't watched this game, but just kind of based on the profile, based on the body type, based on the background, I could see Gaddy maybe being one of those guys that catches a contract.
Okay, so once again, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, rookie minicamp practices. I think the media has access today and Saturday. I don't believe there's media access on Sunday, and I guess by Monday we'll know who from this rookie minicamp the invites get signed, and then the other thing we'll be watching for is how many of the draft picks sign their rookie deals in total.
Exactly. One other piece of Steelers news here that I do want to mention just came across on Friday morning. This is from Neil Stratton, who kind of handles all the inside baseball when it comes to football. Mark Gorsuch apparently stepping down as Steelers' longtime scout. I think the phrasing was something to do with new football opportunities. I'm not entirely quite sure what that means, but it sounds like he won't be in his position as a Steelers area scout anymore. And so Mark Gorsuch, of course, most well known for him being the guy that kind of commands and runs the 40-yard dash at the combine at Indianapolis. That seems to be ending. And so he's been a Pittsburgh lifer. He was even the GM of I think Pittsburgh Gladiators, the arena football team back in the late 80s. So it's a guy that's been around the organization, around the city for a long, long time. And that news certainly bummed me out this morning, Dave.
Bum me out as well too. You can't have a combine without
shut it down. Shut the combine down.
Gorsuch, and on top of that, you want to talk about one of the most easily recognizable Steelers figures at any off-season pro day. It's probably him. I don't know. Omar Khan's up there now. And Kevin Colbert was fairly easy, and it goes without saying the camera always finds Mike Tomlin. But I guess if you were to rank easily spottable guys at college pro days during the offseason, Mark Gorsuch has to be in the top 5 there, especially when all he does is he's like he has one hat that he wears.
The man in the yellow hat. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, what a great long career he's had. And I guess it'll be interesting to see what this, continued, whatever happens at this point, and, how closely he stays connected to the game. And, will he still kind of be the official starter, I guess, at the combine? So, all it's done, I guess, with this news has kind of created a few questions.
Yeah, I mean, you imagine his region was changed. He was the longtime kind of southern southeast area scout, and he was working more Midwest, Mid-Atlantic this year. And so I imagine Pittsburgh will have to fill that region with somebody. So, you should expect less front office turnover this year now that Omar Khan and Andy White will kind of have most of their guys in place. But that sounds like one area that will have to be replaced by a scout or some sort of other internal shuffling. So I'll be watching that Steelers front office page like a hawk and try to see when that change gets made.
All right.
All right, Dave. Omar Khan speaking to 93.7 The Fan on Thursday, and actually had quite a bit to say, even though he's done a bunch of interviews already this week. Of course, the first football question that was asked about him was regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers slot corner situation and Arthur Millette. Khan tried to say it was kind of a mutual decision. Again, who the heck really knows? I still think the Millette situation is weird in terms of why this guy ended up getting cut here in May. But when asked about the slot position, Khan specifically mentioned two names, maybe a bit too surprising names here, in Chandon Sullivan, who was signed on day 3 of the NFL draft, and Duke Dawson, who signed a futures contract, was on team's practice squad late last season, former second-round pick of the Patriots, never played a down for New England, got a cup of coffee with the Denver Broncos, played last in 2020. So Sullivan and Dawson, some names there in the slot.
Look, and this goes back to our conversation the other day about with that news breaking about Arthur Millette and all. There's no way they went into this offseason thinking they weren't going to have Arthur Millette at least at the start of training camp this year, right?
I have to think he was in their plans, at least, to be part of that camp roster.
Right. So, at this point, it really does, after everything's kind of settled here, and, the Instagram remarks and Khan's remarks about, just kind of a mutual, we probably need to part ways. This feels like it was more on Millette than anything. And, what do you expect Khan to say coming out of the backside of it here? He immediately goes to the other guys under contract on the roster.
Sure, I guess. And again, we don't know the answer to this, so I don't want to spend too much wasted breath on it. But why would Millette want out? I mean, there were some phrasings of contract disputes. I don't know what that dispute could possibly be for a guy on his contract. And even though there was some competition brought in, I mean, stay in the place that where they know you, as opposed to hoping to catch on somewhere else. That's my thought.
Maybe he was under the assumption that if he had a good year, that they talk extension, after this year, and maybe those extension talks didn't happen, or maybe he thinks he deserves more pay than that, or maybe who knows at this point. So there could be 18 different subcategories to this that are reasons related to this that we don't know and might not ever know, likely won't ever know. So the move in and of itself was surprising. Obviously the timing, I mean, it goes back to the kind of the Jameer Jones. So, something's not adding up here. There is more to the story here, I think, than we know. Unfortunately, this time we might not find out the rest of the story.
Right. That's a fair thought overall in terms of who this team's slot corner could be. Again, Sullivan, who does have experience, although he did not grade out well last year. Dawson has not played a regular season snap in a couple seasons, but I'll imagine that he's in the mix. Really, I don't know how it's going to go. I think Khan's basically saying is we'll figure it out. It'll be sorted out by the end of training camp. It could be really any number of names, and you could probably throw out any name when I really wouldn't say no, aside from it's not going to be Joey Porter Jr. It could be basically anybody else. So I really don't know. I'm not sure if the team knows. They're going to take it all in the camp and try to sort it out then.
Yeah, and we could be seeing some Patrick Peterson. I guess to me, where I sit right now, based on everything that's happened and has been said, I still, in my gut, think that somebody not currently under contract with this team will be there when the initial 53-man roster is created.
That's fair. I think I'm with you.
I don't know who that is. I don't know what that looks like. I don't have any inkling as to throw out a name there. But I mean, how many times have we said this, Alex, over the years? The OTA roster, even the mandatory minicamp roster, a lot of times, more than a lot of times, guys that are not even on that roster coming out of mandatory minicamp, a lot of times that 53-man roster includes one or two names of players that have experience.
Sure, you've written a ton on that, and so you probably expect somebody who's not a Steeler today to be a Steeler come that week one game against the 49ers. So, but in terms of the options now, I mean, you wanted to say Levi Wallace would get a chance in the slot. Sure. You want to say Sullivan, you want to say Casey, Norwood, Peterson, they all, I guess, could be in play right now. I really don't know what the strategy is here.
How many of them give you a warm, fuzzy feeling, though?
None. 0 of them, which is the problem.
Right. So, and look, if this team was to add outside experienced guys moving forward, I think outside linebacker and slot corner lead the list.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Dave. Speaking of positional flexibility and some kind of shuffling, talked about the left tackle job, talked about Dan Moore Jr., and said Khan did that Moore has positional flexibility. I'm not quite sure if he does, but I think he'll have to at some point here if he does not win that left tackle job or keep that left tackle job.
Did he kind of paint himself in a corner there?
Yeah, he kind of, I mean, basically said that like this guy's not going to be the left tackle. Yeah, and Moore's background is almost strictly at left tackle. He did a little bit of right tackle early in his A&M career. I mean, he did a little bit of right tackle his rookie year in Pittsburgh when they were kind of sorting things out with Okorafor and Banner and Moore himself. But I mean, he's pretty been locked in on that left side.
Because he was asked specifically to as part of the phrasing about guard, and it seemed like he didn't. I don't know. It seemed like he kind of painted himself into a corner there, almost given the aspect of, yeah, we're going to let these guys compete. And he obviously said the best 5 is going to be the best 5 to start, yada, yada. But it almost felt kind of like he's resigned to the fact that barring something not happening or going totally wrong, that Broderick Jones is going to be the starting left tackle for this team.
That was my impression as well. And obviously, first round pick, I think he's the favorite for the job, but I did write, and I still stand by it, that I think Moore's going to give this guy tougher tests than people think because Moore has had experience. And again, just adjusting to Pat Meyer's system, we saw how difficult it was for all these guys last year. Now you have a pretty raw guy in Jones coming in to learn that system. He'll get it. He'll pick it up eventually, but there's going to be some growing pains, I think, along the way. But yeah, to hear Khan tell it was kind of more of, okay, Dan Moore's going to have to focus on doing some other stuff for us.
But here's the thing. You look at all the offseason moves and kind of what the interior section depth chart looks like right now at this time. How the hell are you going to get Dan Moore snaps at guard moving forward? I mean, they would be at best third team guard snaps in OTAs and camp, right?
Yeah, I think Khan was just trying to speak really broadly and kind of get past the question. I don't think Moore's going to seriously take snaps at guard. He's not going to start.
I don't either.
There in Herbig. I think he'll be the swing tackle. If he's not the starting left tackle, he'll be the swing guy to play left and right tackle should somebody get hurt.
And that's what made it curious the way Omar kind of answered the question there is because, okay, let's say the plan is, or barring something going totally wrong. I mean, don't you want to get Dan Moore as many snaps as possible on the right side?
Yeah, you do. He's got to get a lot of reps there.
Right. So anyway, just kind of curious the way he answered that question is all.
Moving on from Omar Khan, talked about the Alex Highsmith extension, which basically is the same stuff he said before. Never gonna, openly commit to doing a deal, but he says that he wants Highsmith to be a Steeler.
Getting done. It's getting. Yeah. I've semi pointed to the fence all off season here. I'm pointing to the fence. It's getting done.
Full extension here. Full Babe Ruth to the wall.
Look, I mean, it could be just a 2-year extension, but they're 2 or 3 years added on top. But something's going to get done that'll keep him under contract past this year.
Okay, I'm with you as well there, Dave. And then last thing I saw from Khan was him basically confirming that had Joey Porter Jr. not been there at 32, Pittsburgh would have traded out of the pick and gotten probably with Tennessee, I'm guessing, to move down. So Porter truly was their guy at 32.
That makes sense.
Yep. Not a big surprise there, but just to get more clarification on that statement. So anything else from Omar Khan? I think that was kind of the bulk of what he had to say.
I think you wrote, what did you write this morning about his comments rooting for Mike Tomlin contract extension? And, obviously that's not his job and all like that. So I think he answered that question just fine. Let's see, what else did he say? You know what? We need to go back all the way back to the combine and see how many times really excited. That's Omar Khan's go-to phrase. Really excited. I think he has said that a ton, dating all the way back to the combine. Oh, what about the whole? Did you mention what he had to say about Calvin Austin?
Oh, no, I forget. I totally missed that. Yeah, talked about Calvin Austin, that Khan said he's healthy and he looks good out there. And so he should be able to join this team for OTAs. And just based on the tea leaves of those comments, and we don't know exactly where Austin's at in his, coming off that foot surgery, but it sounds like he should be a full go for OTAs.
And a part that got me excited says Darnell Washington obviously going to be one of Najee's best friends. So that should get everybody excited. He went out of his way to make sure to say, look, Darnell Washington is not only a blocker. We think that he can help us in the passing game as well. And, I do concur with that. But I think I am most excited, at least right out of the chute, when it comes to the 2023 Steelers and their draft class is I do really look forward to Darnell Washington and Najee Harris potentially walking down the hill at St. Vincent College in Latrobe hand in hand to start what we hope is a long friendship, a close friendship.
That is something that has me very excited. I'll be Omar Khan and say how excited I am to see those two guys work together this year.
Right.
All right, Dave, I think that's going to wrap up our discussion here. We can get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right. Let's see here. Let's get to the email machine. Joseph Thomas. Hi, Dave and Alex. Can you break down why the slot corner position requires a different skill set than an outside corner? Why wouldn't Wallace or a Peterson play the role? What traits are they missing? He says, regarding slot receiver, can we use our tight end depth to fill this need? Hayward and Muth, while exciting, are not very useful blocking. Why not put them in the slot more than they did last year? He says Muth is famous for not missing balls in the end zone, and Hayward is versatile with soft hands. Let's take the second part first. Look, I think you definitely do have more of an opportunity, especially if you're going to run 12 and 13 personnel or get me excited, some 23 personnel. You can have some fun with Hayward and Muth, I think, potentially, and moving those guys out. So I do think that there is the potential, the way this roster is shaping up and with kind of the identity that we think this team is trying to stamp this early on, that, you can use Hayward and Muth more detached, if you will, and use those guys more in the passing game overall. Now, I don't think it's going to be a, extraordinary amount, but both those guys have skill sets. And I think we've seen, look, Hayward's got a great ability for a guy his size, his catch radius is really exciting, and he can do things down the field. So long story short, I mean, yeah, I think regarding slot as a whole, those guys give you non-traditional slot wide receiver options, if you will.
Yeah, I'm really excited by that idea. I think, just because you're in 12 personnel or 13 or whatever does not mean you have to be super condensed and super tight and everybody with their hand in the ground. I mean, I think the idea, I mentioned this on a previous show this week, the big empty, where you come out heavy in 12 or 13, you spread the field and you're just, you're picking matchups on the outside, 1v1. You couldn't do that in the past with Zach Gentry and Derek Watt. You didn't have pass catchers, you didn't have athletes on the field. Now you put in Frymouth and Washington and Connor Hayward. You got some real good athletes that can run routes and catch passes and exploit matchups that way. So I'm really excited by that prospect, and I hope Pittsburgh does some of that this year. But certainly, even last year, you saw some 3x1 nub with Frymouth backside, kind of isolated, some red zone type stuff. So I think that idea will be expanded upon as Hayward's role grows, as you bring in Washington, those kinds of things.
Did you see that clip that Jim Nagy posted on Twitter of South Carolina running that old school 32 personnel?
Oh, yeah, like T formation looking thing. Yeah.
Ooh, it got pretty warm here in Vegas watching that. Look, play. Obviously, you're not going to use that much, if any, at the NFL level, but I would like to see I would like to see Matt Canada play around a little bit with some personnel groupings this year.
Me too. And as for the slot corner position, yeah, they're different skill sets. The way that outside receiver and slot receiver, it can be different things. And you're defending more areas of the field. Typically, you want somebody a bit twitchier. You're a bigger responsibility in the run fit of a defensive structure. There's more communication. I mean, there's different layers to playing in the slot. So could guys like, Wallace or Peterson do it? They could, but it's new to them. It's a different skill set. It requires a bit more twitchiness, maybe that press man and, using length on the outside. So
change your direction, all like that, right?
Yeah, it's a different skill set. You're defending, all route tree, all areas of the field. If you're inside leverage on a receiver on the outside, you basically are denying the inside. He's only going to be able to run basically a comeback or a go route. You've kind of limited that route tree. If you're a slot receiver, I mean, you can use leverage to try to dictate things a bit, but that whole route tree opens up. So there's just a lot more chaos to defend in that slot role, and the skill set's a bit different. And so it's not like you can just put a guy there and expect it to work.
Nick Shuley writes in, fun Friday question, Alex and Dave. I know that over the last few years, the Steelers love to run that tight end shovel pass in short yardage goal line situations. With that being said, how many times do you guys think that they will run that play with Darnell Washington? He says, let's set the over and under at 5.5. Thanks for all the great work. Much love. Okay, good. That is a fun question, but I got to. I'm trying to think back to the to my contextualization. I don't know. I've looked at. I think I've looked at all of his targets now. I don't remember them ever running the shovel to him at Georgia. If they did, it was one, maybe two times. Talking about kind of that inside shovel to Darnell Washington. So I would. If you're going to give me an over-under at 5.5 times that they'll run that to Darnell Washington in 2023, I'll take the under.
I might take the under as well, although did Georgia run that play like at all? It may not have been part of their playbook. I mean, Juju probably wasn't catching many shovel passes at USC, and he caught a bunch of them with the Steelers.
I think maybe that other tight end there, they had a couple of them run to, who's that?
Brock Bowers. He did some jet sweeps, I think, in the run game, so they did some stuff with him. They could. It could be. It's a little less about the person as it is kind of just getting the defense to kind of freeze, and you're not quite sure what's happening as you see the quarterback start to sprint out, and you're worried about something in the flat. So I think it's a little less on who the actual tight end is. Didn't they do that with Gentry though? I think once or twice last year. So they've kind of used the big guy to do it, and obviously Washington could fall forward and get yards. So I imagine they probably try it. How many times they do it depends on circumstance and situation. I'll take the under, but I bet you it happens at least once. Yeah,
Nick, if you had gave us an over-under maybe at, I don't know, either a half or 1.5, it'd probably make it a little bit more interesting. But 5.5 seems like a lot for Washington specifically on that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Chris Warren writes in, I appreciated your article that was fair in its treatment of Kevin Colbert's body of work. We should be able to appreciate Colbert now without taking away from what happened or what appears to have been an excellent first draft by Kahn and Weidel. Nevertheless, there are many in Steelers Nation that are still not happy. I agree with Trevor's dad that that we should all aspire to be to more than just avoiding having losing seasons. But don't you think that many Steeler fans forgo a good deal of the joy in being a fan by constantly expecting perfection? Look, I think Alex, I'll let Alex address this, but I think Alex did a good job addressing that. I mean, it's funny how you got all this excitement coming out of this draft for guys that have never played right now. And instantly you want to look back at the most recent, let's say 2 drafts of Colbert's and immediately kind of start, tearing him down maybe as far as what his legacy is, I guess. I mean, Kevin Colbert was a great GM. And like all GMs, they're probably going to have their, and here's the thing. What if Kenny Pickett, turns out to be, the next franchise quarterback? I think that trumps any and all picks that he may have made over the last 3 or 4 drafts overall. If you get a franchise quarterback that goes on to lead you to playoffs and potentially Super Bowls, not only one of them, but 2 of them, that trumps everything, I think.
I agree 100%. I mean, if your 2 first-round quarterbacks you ever drafted were like unbelievable home run type hits, even if Pickett never quite reaches Ben's level, but it's a very good like franchise 10-year starter, I mean, that is just incredible. Something that rarely, if ever, do you see. Yeah, you don't have to, just because we're excited about Kahn and we are rightfully excited about this draft class, this offseason does not mean necessarily that you have to throw dirt on Colbert's career. I think it was more aggressive towards the end than people give him credit for. I think it was certainly better than maybe some people remember. It wasn't perfect. And if Kahn does his job for 20 years, he's going to have mistakes and errors, and we'll be yelling at Omar Kahn at one point over these next 20 years if he's on this job as long as Kevin Colbert was. So, it's not either or, it's yes and. I certainly appreciate Colbert's career and can really be excited about how the Kahn era is starting.
All right, Justin Brisbane writes in, with the corner room looking quite deep on the outside, should the Steelers be looking to make a trade for a slot guy? He says, I know we don't have a ton of ammunition, but maybe swap Akello, Witherspoon, and a late round draft pick, or even Levi for a more capable slot guy. He says, Alex has me worried about the position. We're going to be talking about the slot corner position all off. We already have talked about it, all off season, and we're going to continue to talk about that. As far as, and now my thoughts on it too. My gut tells me just somebody's not on the roster is going to end up on the roster at some point. So we'll see about that. As far as the idea of swapping a guy like Akello, trading, using Akello, Witherspoon, and a late draft pick to trade for somebody. I mean, I'm not going to say that's impossible, but I'll tell you this. I mean, how many teams really at this point would want to take on a $4 million salary for Akello Witherspoon?
Yeah, probably not many unless he has a really good summer that kind of shows.
And the same goes for Levi, really. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Levi would have more value, but I'm less interested in, of course, stealing Levi Wallace. I mean, at this point, yeah, slot to me is a big worry given the uncertainty there, but you're not going to probably make moves right now. You just signed Sullivan, so that's your veteran guy to add into that mix. You're going to go through the OTA, through spring ball, through training camp and see what's there, who might emerge and figure it out from there. And if you're still not happy with that group, then you look at trade possibilities late in August. You look at cut downs and right before September and kind of take it from there. So no moves are going to get made anytime real soon.
I always like to, at this time of the year, just try to take a step back and remember that these things always end up coming out in the wash somehow, some way. And Once again, my gut feeling is, and everything that Alex has presented, and just looking at the roster right now and knowing that, potentially Peterson can have a role maybe inside, it just feels like they're one short veteran wise in there, that maybe we'll look back come, when's the final cut down, or when's the roster assembly day? September
31st or September 2nd. I don't know, something like that.
That we're going to look back and say, it all came out in the wash here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but in 2021, I mean, it really didn't. I mean, they just kind of bumbled along and eventually just kind of put Cam Sutton back there mid-season, or 3 weeks in, and Sutton's not an option right now. My concern is that it's going to be like a true battle between Sullivan and Duke Dawson for 80% of training camp. This team goes, oh yeah, neither of these guys are worth the spot, and they're kind of just struggling and flailing from there.
All right, fair enough. Seth Bergstein writes in, I know we all love the draft class, and I do too. I'm just curious, is there any player we didn't get that you wish we would have, and who would that player have been taken in place of, given how the board played out? Thanks, and have a great weekend. I've said all along that I wasn't as enthralled, with this draft class. And really not so much last year's, I don't think, either overall there. So, I mean, it's hard for me to. When did Isaiah McGuire go exactly?
4th round. I don't know if it was before or after the Herbig pick. Herbig was 132. I don't know what selection.
Yeah, he went 6 ahead of Herbig, so that would not have been an option there. Although Yasir Abdullah, right, went a handful of picks after Herbig did. I mean, it's, looking back at the redraft exercise and all that. And look, I mean, it was hard. It was hard to think that this team was going to go away from that connection with Herbig, right? In that spot. I'm trying to look back through if there's any other player drafted, because there was a long wait there in between, the picks and all like that. I mean, it's hard because of the way these picks wound up being in that huge gap in there. I don't know, that couple of slot corners were entertained. That Keitrell Clark that Owen talked about would have been intriguing, but you would have had to overdraft him the way the board went if you were to go and take him in the 4th. I think Keitrell Clark went in like the 6th here overall. So, I mean, it is hard to kind of reverse engineer this based on where they were picking overall. So I can't. And look, I never would have dreamed that they would have got Darnell Washington in the 3rd. So I'm not gonna blame them for not getting the Michigan kid when you got Washington instead. I can't sit here right now and say, man, I wish they would have got. When did Johnson, the safety, go? He went 6th round, didn't he?
He went the pick after Corey Trice.
Okay, well, even so, I mean, the value that the perceived value that you got in Trice, trumps drafting a developmental corner to safety switch guy in Johnson. So, I mean, I'm not going to find issue with that whatsoever. Who went after Spencer Anderson? There weren't,
only 8 picks left.
Right. Yeah. Who of the undrafted guys, I guess, would you have said, man, I really would have liked to seen that guy in a Steelers uniform,
Yeah, I don't know if there's one name that comes to mind. I mean, I don't really spend any time thinking about this revisionist stuff just because, you could do that for days and hours. Maybe something with you'd swap out Herbig for either a slot corner, like you mentioned, or I like Darius Rush from South Carolina, who fell a bit in the 5th round to Indianapolis. Of course, you get Trice to double dip a corner later in the draft. But other than that, in my redraft, I had basically the same picks, the literal same picks on day 1 and day 2. And I just maybe a slight disagreement on Herbig, but I'm not going to complain too much. Again, I think maybe you should add the slot corner. But other than that, I'm very happy with how things turned out.
Jason Robinson, hello, Daleks. I have a question. Dave, could you discuss briefly what Omar can still do with the Mitch Trubisky contract? With him being a salary cap guy, I can't believe that Mitch will carry an $8 million clipboard, and that's no matter how much the Rooneys love him. So what's possible besides an extension, which I doubt happens? Look, I mean, I think I wrote about this, early on in the offseason there, once it became kind of evident that Trubisky was going to stay. I mean, you would literally have to use some void years here with him to if you weren't going to offer him a flat out extension, which once again, that might be hard to do because the new money and the average yearly value has to warrant Trubisky wanting to sign that. First and foremost, it would pretty much be him accepting that I'm going to be a backup for the rest of my career, probably in Pittsburgh. First and foremost, but to hear Omar Khan talk early in the offseason, you have to take him at his word that they really want Mitch past this season. So I don't know how it's going to work out there. The only way to get his contract number or his cap number down is to be to some sort of restructure where it's void years added and, he's able to walk away still after the 2023 season. But once again, if I'm going to do that for the Steelers, if I'm Trubisky at this point, I'm going to say, whoa. I want some of these incentives adjusted as part of that. Basically, I would say if I have to step on the field for, 15, 20 more snaps than I played last year, I want $3 million more dollars or something to that effect. Because already his incentive program that's part of his contract does not set up favorably for him in 2023 for obvious reasons, with Kenny Pickett as a starter there. So it would have to be the Steelers would have to make some concessions, I feel, if they went to Trubisky to get him to do a void year extension.
Yeah, I mean, I've been consistent about this the entire offseason. There's really no moves to make. I mean, we could talk about what, they could do, but what Trubisky would want to do is probably become a free agent next year. He got his money. He's a backup. He's going to go try to do something else probably next season. So my whole standpoint from months ago was that Trubisky will remain a Steeler. There'll be no extension, no pay cut, no nothing, just as is. He's the backup, and that's where he'll be in 2023.
And if they do an extension, you have to make it worth his while for him.
Right. I'm not even sure what that looks like to make it worth his while, other than just paying him a ton of money to be the backup.
Right. So it has now become, it kind of looks like he's just going to be under contract for $8 million and that's it in the story. And we'll see. I think the most intriguing aspect of all this, from the moment that Art Rooney said that we expect him to remain in Pittsburgh this year, is what Omar Khan said at the combine about wanting him to be a Steeler past this year. Now, is that just lip service? Is there more to it? I think that's the most intriguing quotes that have come out of the whole Mitch Trubisky thing this offseason.
I never found that interesting. I thought it was just kind of cliche lip service. And even if Pittsburgh wanted that, and maybe they do, Trubisky really doesn't want that. So I know that's kind of where got people in a whole, tizzy about an extension. I never really viewed it that way. And I mean, obviously there's been no rumors or talks about it since. So I think it probably was more, lip service.
Okay. And we'll definitely find out between now and week one. Let's see. Adam Gesk writes in, "Hey guys, can you explain the idea of slot only versus outside only guys?" He says, I may be wrong, but it seems like the consensus says that Joey Porter Jr. is an outside only cornerback and Josh Downs is a slot only wide receiver. Obviously Josh Downs drafted by another team. If not, replace the players for this example. So that means if they're both lined up outside, Porter is going to dominate those reps. And if they're both lined up in the slot, Downs is going to dominate those reps. Why? Is that more or less true based on the situation, such as on 1st and 10? All right, Adam wants to play semantics here. I get where you're coming from. In other words, if Josh Downs was to line up outside, does that make it a more favorable match for Joey Porter versus Downs lining up inside and Joey Porter having to move inside to cover him?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think it's that complicated. It's just skill set based. If you're outside, you're running more vertical routes, you're going to be inviting press coverage more often, and that's going to be advantage Porter. If you're inside, you might be playing off the ball a little bit. The route tree opens up quite a bit. It's going to be more short, intermediate type game, horizontal routes, and that's where Downs thrives, and Porter might lack some of that twitch and change of direction. That's going to be ideal to cover slot corners. So, I mean, everybody kind of moves around to some degree in today's NFL. You might get some twin receiver sets where Porter lines up over slot, and Downs probably will occasionally align outside in Indianapolis. But I mean, it's just based on skill sets and route trees and, space of the field. Yeah.
All that.
Yeah. I mean, that's just how football is. Some skill sets work better in different areas of the field, different roles. And that's all that slot versus outside can be.
Right. Good answer. Let's see if we can got time for maybe one more. No, I think we got most of it out of the way here, at least initially, and we're running a little long, and rookie minicamp's going to get underway here. We got to start pay attention to that overall. So sorry if we did not get to your question. I think there's a couple more in here, so resend them if you deem them still being relevant at this time. And Alex and I will be back on Monday, and we'll recap anything that transpired over the weekend, possibly some new signings we'll cover, and who said what of these young players coming in for rookie minicamp. So I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about come Monday there. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. Appreciate all this. I mean, the support's been absolutely amazing, especially this past week here, coming out of the draft and all that. We can't thank everybody enough for visiting the site and listening to the podcast. And also, I think Monday night will be our next YouTube live stream on top of that. So we'd look forward to having a large turnout. Those have been amazing these last several weeks as well too. So, all we really can do is sit here and say, thank you for reading and listening. So until Monday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.